Welcome to another episode of History Over Coffee. I'm just glad that people have watched these videos and seem to be interested in the things I'm telling you. And I know a lot of you can relate to a lot of the music, and that's what I want to focus on, is a lot of the music as well. But it intertwines with stories and how I got involved with music and bands and influences and things like that to bring me up to an old man I am today. So sit back and watch another episode. Here it goes. You know, when I graduated high school, the furthest thing from my mind was to join the military. But then almost 2 years went by, about a year and a half. Still living with my parents, jamming in the basement with friends and stuff. Working, part-time jobs, restaurant temp jobs, whatever I could get. Still thinking I was gonna make it in a band, but I knew it wasn't gonna work out for money at that point in my life. So my parents were both teachers, and they were really saying, you gotta go to college, you gotta go to college. And I didn't want to. I really didn't. Anyway, a year and a half after graduating, I just tired of messing around, joined the military. So Air Force, I go to an Air Force recruiter down there in Forest Park, Ohio. And I remember the guy was like, well, what do you want to do? Are you serious about this or what? And I'm like, well, yeah. And if I'm going to be in the Air Force, I want to work around aircraft. So he's like, cool. So I got signed up, and I had a delayed enlistment, and then I had to wait about 6 months before I was shipped off to basic training in San Antonio, Texas. So here I was, 20 years old, got married. Yeah, it was that girl I told you about in the previous video from Come to See Us Jam. Got married at 20 years old, joined the Air Force in that same year, and I was off to Texas to go to basic training. So got through basic training all well and good, and that was cool. And then they put us on a bus to go to Wichita Falls, Texas, and to Shepherd Air Force Base. And I was gonna be air cargo specialist. So at that time, after basic training and after you completed your first parts of your technical training, you're pretty much free to do what you want. So you could, you could go to malls, you could go to movies, you could go downtown. You didn't have to wear a uniform everywhere like you did in basic and in the first parts of tech school. So on Friday, Saturday nights at Shepherd Air Force Base, they had the Airmen's Club. Yeah, and one side was dance music and one side was live bands. Well, I usually gravitated to the live band side. So I go there one particular night and I hear this band playing covers of Van Halen, Bon Jovi Runaway, some Judas Priest stuff. And I was like, these guys are pretty good, And, it's funny is because it was the first time since before I left for basic, I saw any males with long hair, long hair rocker types. And I was trying to figure out what the name of this band was. So on the drum head in the front, I could barely make it out. It was like, is that like a tiger, panther, something? And then I found out, oh, Pantera. Oh yeah. Believe it or not, I did see Pantera with their old singer, Terry. So we stayed in dormitories when I was in tech school, tech training. And my roommate was from Florida, and he didn't like the same music as me. He liked Latin music and, pop music and Janet Jackson and stuff like that. But we did agree on some of the stuff on MTV, such as Missing Persons. And, also from watching MTV, I think around that time is when the Beastie Boys' Fight for Your Right to Party came out. And we thought that was a cool video as well. So made good friends. And the good thing about joining the military and getting out of Ohio was I was then exposed to all cultures and races, and got more life experience when it came to that kind of stuff. And I was fascinated by that. I was fascinated by all my classmates being from all over the place. It was like, wow, you're from LA and you're from Montana and you're from New York. And that was really cool to me. So while I was in tech training, I got my first assignment, and people were getting all these exciting places like, wow, you're going to Germany, you're going to Italy, you're going to Japan, you're going to Hawaii. Wow, this is awesome. You're going to California. Damn, I wanted to go to California. But I got Texas. I got Texas again. So here I was, basic training, tech training, and my first duty assignment, all in the state of Texas. Well, it was Fort Worth, Texas, Carswell Air Force Base at the time. So we, before we drove down there, me and the ex, we're thinking cowboys, country music, rodeos, that kind of thing, Dallas Cowboys, the show Dallas. That's all the stereotypes you have if you've never been there from back then. So we're thinking that, and it was, wasn't sure how it was going to go. Okay. So I show up to my base, and I just really wanted to make a good impression and show them that I was a capable young airman ready to work hard, and that's kind of what I did, and I think my ex-wife was always just happy to get out of Ohio. She was like, I don't care where we go, let's get out of here. So I started working at my shop and getting into my job, and coworkers were great. You have your ups and downs with them, we used to play basketball in the warehouse when we weren't working, and played on the softball team on base, and got involved that way, and met friends. And the job it wasn't too hard, actually, at first. We'd work aircraft. The plane would come in the morning every day, and we'd have to unload the supplies and equipment that were coming for our base in the region. And then we'd load up any cargo that was being shipped out. And we process all the cargo in the warehouse and things like that. So if you don't have an understanding of it, that's what I'm trying to explain to you. It was like a cargo warehouse kind of deal, and then we took it out to the aircraft, unloaded it, kind of like a FedEx or a UPS with aircraft or something like that. So that was my job, and it was cool. I loved it. You got to drive all kind of vehicles, drive forklifts, drive big loaders. The first time I learned how to drive a stick shift was when I was in the Air Force in that job, and I was having a good time, being a good airman, hanging out with my coworkers, and it was cool. And while we were in the warehouse, either working or having our basketball battles, we'd usually have the radio on, and I never forget this station. It was called Texas Best Rock, Q102, KZEW, the Zoo, Texas Best Rock. And we'd have that on, but of course, like I mentioned, we had people from all over the place, so they wanted to put on pop music and R&B stations or whatever it was, and that was cool. But one thing that I learned quick in the Air Force, in our career field, was you work hard and you party hard. And that's what it was back then in the 80s, in the mid 80s, And I don't know if it's still like that now, but I mean, that's what we did. So it didn't matter if you're married, you're single, bring your wives, bring your husband, bring your girlfriend, whatever. We're gonna party, barbecue, go to every Friday, probably at somebody's house. We were going to somebody's house to barbecue, to party, jam out to music and whatever. And then, of course, by the end of the night, we wind up at some dance club or some bar or something. And that's just the way it was, Not like a college fraternity. I guess you could compare it to like a college fraternity, but we worked. College fraternity, you go to class, and then you just be, wild after class. But this was work hard, party hard. So somehow I started listening to this community radio called KNON, and I can't remember what night of the week it was, but it was punk rock night, and I was like, huh? This is so cool. So they had all the bands that, some that I had heard, some I just heard about, Circle Jerks, Black Flag, stuff that I read about in Skateboarder magazine way back when, and they would play all that kind of stuff. And so I started getting more interested in that. And then, like I said, I did have the stereotype of Texas and the cowboys and the country music, but I realized that Dallas-Fort Worth area, is a ginormous metroplex, and people from all over the place and very cultural. So here is when I got more in tune with punk rock and all these bands that I didn't have access to, and all these records I didn't have access to back in Ohio. And then on that KNON station, I'm sure a lot of you may have done this in the past, I would make tapes. I would just press my cassette, record that KNON station, and that got me interested in all kind of bands. A band called No Means No, the Big Boys from Austin, Texas, TSOL, True Sounds of Liberty, all those punk rock bands, and Minor Threat, of course, the Misfits, Husker Du, Social Distortion, Minutemen, Bad Religion, and so I was an avid watcher of MTV. I watched it daily. And you probably remember back then, maybe you don't, but it's probably 83-ish, 84. Suicidal Tendencies, institutionalized video, which was, if you remember it, Mom, come on, give me a Pepsi, please. All I want is a Pepsi. That video I thought was crazy, but also I thought it was cool. But here, and I am at a Dallas music store, and I can buy that album. And so I buy that album, and that was a game changer for me, because I listened to that album daily, and of course I was like, what? Super, super fast punk rock. Now, institutionalized is like a hard groove until you get to the chorus, right? But the rest of most of that album is nuts. So I became a fan of Suicidal Tendencies as well back then. And then also the Misfits, started getting into their music more. So at this point in my life, I was just trying to be a good husband, a good airman at work, and do my job, hang out with my coworkers and, do stuff like that. Do the typical stuff, watch sports on TV, go rent movies from the video store, VHS tapes, right? So one day I saw this guy at a drive-through, okay? And he got out of his car, I don't know why, maybe dropped something or whatever, but I noticed that he had on skateboard, they're called Rector knee pads. And of course, anybody that was into skateboarding would know that stuff back then. And so I just looked at my wife and I was kind of in shock. I was like, I know that guy skates. And she goes, go talk to him. I'm like, I don't want to go talk to him. That's kind of weird. So anyway, I did go up to him and I said, hey man, I see you skate, right? Where did you skate at? Where can you skate around here? And he told me, oh yeah, this place in Dallas. And I'm like, Dallas? I'm thinking, oh, that's so far away, like 40 minutes. And he's like, yeah, Dallas, clown ramp. So we exchanged information, and he took me out there one day. And I didn't have a board or anything. The first thing from my mind was skateboarding or playing drums, mind you. So we go out there and hung out a little bit, and I just watched. So I had all but not even thought about skateboarding, when I'm 21, 20 years old, whatever. I thought my life is the Air Force now and being married. I didn't think I could really do too much extracurricular stuff. And then I thought, maybe I'm getting too old to skate. But I went out there and I bought a board and I started riding that ramp, and I wasn't the greatest. I could get up and grind on it. I could drop in, I could do all that kind of stuff, but no crazy tricks at that point. But what I saw was crazy good sessions from pro caliber skaters. And later on, they would become known names on the pro circuit. And one of them always was Jeff Phillips, rest in peace, was a pro skater out there. And I didn't know that at the time. Craig Johnson, and then Art and Steve Godoy, the Godoy twins. Those guys ended up being pro skaters, but they were hanging out at that clown ramp in Dallas all the time. And I was just blown away by how good they were. So one of the times when I was out there, I saw this poster up on the wall or posted on the back of the ramp or whatever, and it said, "Shut Up and Skate Contest in Houston, Texas, sponsored by Zorlak Skateboards." And I was like, wow, Houston's like 5 hours away. I ain't going. So when I went back to work, and I knew one of my coworkers was from Houston, Texas. And I said, "John, I saw this poster, man. It said, shut up and skate in Houston." And this guy, he was married like me, but he was always down for anything. He's like, "Let's go. I'll drive you down there, man. I know Houston so well. Let's go." I was like, "Are you serious?" He's like, "Yeah, man, why not? Let's just go down there and check it out. It's a pro contest." Okay. So, our wives were already hanging out together. They were friends. So we let them, it was like a Saturday, and we drove down there and back in one day. 5-hour drive to Houston from Fort Worth. And we saw all the pros. It took us forever to find the place because that was way before GPS, right? And it took us forever to find this place. And then lo and behold, we get to it, and it's out in the middle of some field or some pasture or something. And then we see the ramp and we see the mass crowd. And we just had a good time baking in the Texas sun, just watching pro skaters for the first time in my life. So my good friend Rob, back at the shop, still good friends with him today. He liked the same music as I did. He was also from East Texas. And we went to Van Halen concert together. We went to Rush Power Windows tour together. We went to Judas Priest. You remember that 86 Priest Live video? Yeah, we were there. So that was filmed in Dallas. But anyway, so Rob was into four-wheeling, and he bought a brand new Nissan truck, four-wheel drive, and we go out to lunch one day. We're still in uniform, and he goes, "Let's go see what this thing can do." And so we go out, and I don't know where he found this place back in the woods, but he just wanted to go mudding, and it had these dips and stuff, and we got air a couple times, and I thought that was fun, so much fun. And I thought he was crazy too, but we had a blast. So continuing to hang out with him, I told him what I was doing and then going to this clown ramp and stuff. And he's like, "Well, I'll go out there with you one time, man. Let's go out." So he went out there with me to check it out. And the next thing I know, he's like, "Man, I used to be pretty good on roller skates, not rollerblades, but the four-wheel roller skates. And I could ride ramps." I was like, "What?" So he could. So he next thing you know, we're going out there. He's going with me, and he's riding these ramps, this clown ramp, getting airs and getting all the way to the top and stuff on roller skates. So, with the skateboard, when you go wreck, you can just throw your board to the side and just knee slide out. But when you're on roller skates, that's more treacherous, So we had a lot of fun doing that. So at the same place that we would go four-wheeling in his truck, we got this idea, let's build our own ramp out here. We don't know whose property this is, but it's out in the middle of nowhere. We can probably get some wood into there and build a ramp. So we did, and here we are, supposed to be respectable, airmen, representing the United States Air Force and stuff, and we're sneaking wood. We're buying wood at the lumber store, and and sneaking it back, you know, trying not to make too much noise. So we didn't bring power tools, we just had hand saws and stuff. And that ramp, I remember, was so rickety. You know, we first put it together and it would fall down, you know, and then we'd have to go shore it up and fix it and stuff. And then, yeah, we skated a couple of times. We knew it was junk. But eventually Rob told me that he went back there, you know, a while back later, and somebody had torn it down. It was just laying in a pile. And then not long after that, all the wood was gone. So that was our minute of fun, trying to skate out in the woods and build our own ramp. So my ex was supportive of what I was doing as far as military and even skateboarding. Yeah, she's like, yeah, if you want to, go ahead. If it makes you happy, kind of thing. So, and she got a part-time job at the mall or whatever, and so when she was at work, you know, sometimes I would go skate unless I was, you know, doing other stuff with coworkers, and somehow I got it to this ramp in Arlington, Texas. Now Arlington's in between Dallas and Fort Worth, so it was actually a skate shop that had a ramp outside of it. It had one that was a vert ramp and one that was a little bit less than vert, and it had like an extension on it. And that's the one I like to skate. But I realized that there's, you know, people everywhere, they're gonna piss you off. So the guys out there, the skaters out there, were pretty much all this, hey man, where are you from? This is locals only, you know, kind of ramp. But a couple of them that were younger were kind of cool. You know, here I am 21 something years old, and you know, most of them are teenagers, with the exception of a couple of the jerks that always wanted to fight. Of course, I wasn't about to get no fight because it just caused trouble for me back at work, right? Anyway, so a couple of them, you know, were kind of cool, and they told me about these other spots, you know. So we were finding ditches to skate. We're finding, you know, little areas that you could grind or whatever. And I was like, wow, man, this is cool. Or somebody else's ramp that they tell you about. Oh, this is my friend's ramp, but we can go because I know him and it's cool. Of course, I had to drive all the time. So that was no problem. But one thing that is a dream for a skateboarder is to find an empty swimming pool. So one day, somebody at that Arlington ramp told me about it. And so within seconds, we were like, let's go. Okay, so you get there, and it's a house that had burned down, part of the way anyway. And it was back in the woods, and they had a pool, and it was perfect. But idiots go there, they spray graffiti, and they throw beer bottles in there and break stuff. So we had to go to the store and buy a broom and sweep that stuff out so we could skate it. And I ended up going there more than anything. I love going to skate that pool. I got it down pretty good. And then one day, one of the idiots that was always giving me a hard time back at the Arlington ramp came there, and his jaw just dropped because he knew that I had that pool wired. And I grinded right in front of his face. He came right up to the edge of the pool and was watching me, and I grinded right in front of this guy. And finally he's like, yeah, you skate this pool pretty cool, man.